On today's show, it was a successful road trip as the Capitals take down the Toronto Maple Leafs and Montreal Canadiens.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, I talk about how the Capitals continue to keep rolling as they pick up back-to-back wins up in Canada over the Maple Leafs, over the Canadiens. How is this team getting it done? I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'll talk about how the Capitals take down the Habs. This was a tough game. This was a game that the Capitals really had to demonstrate that pushback that I've talked about. Tom Wilson showing up huge in this game. I'll talk about that later. I'll talk about how the Capitals take down the Maple Leafs. The first game in the back-to-back was going to be a tough one. Historically, the Maple Leafs have been tough on the Capitals. How did the Capitals overcome? I'll talk about that. And then in the final segment, I'll talk about Tom Wilson's injury scare. But just to get it going here, talking about the Capitals and their successful trip up into Canada, in all seems like is well in the world of the Capitals as this team is winning. And you see a little bit of blips on the radar here and there. I'm going to, most recently here, I guess the San Jose Sharks. And, oftentimes we think, things are going awry. Shortly thereafter, the Capitals right the ship. And in a lot of ways, they're getting it done. Well, because they're digging deep and also because of the great leadership of Spencer Carbery. But today we're diving into a big 4-2 victory that the Washington Capitals just clinched against the Montreal Canadiens. And what a game it was. This was a game that if you just watched the first period, you thought, this is not going to go well. And then in the second period, the Montreal Canadiens definitely were in control of this game. Breakaways, missed plays could definitely have spelt disaster for the Capitals. But Logan Thompson, not good enough for the Four Nations face-off, but was really kind of giving it to the Montreal Canadiens and maybe putting them on notice for not selecting him. But what a game. This win secures our position at the top of the NHL standings. Let me rewind that one more time. This win secured our position at the top of the NHL standings. Now, let that really reverberate with you. Again, if you are an everydayer of the show, you know how I talked about that everybody panned this team. My fellow Locked On hosts, all of the insiders within the league said, they picked up some big players, but it's not going to be good enough. How you like us now, how you like me now, the Capitals are killing it. The Capitals outpaced the Minnesota Wild, who stumbled against the Kings. Both teams are tied at 40 points, but our higher points percentage in those all-important regulation wins puts the Capitals in the lead. I'm loving it. Again, like I've talked about on the show, I feel like screaming it to the world. I feel like doing donuts out in the parking lot that who was wrong? That just because you think you know the game and just because certain teams make big acquisitions, I'm talking about the Lightning, I'm talking about the Predators, that it necessarily doesn't translate. And it feels really good that this Capitals team is playing so well. And it's fantastic to see the Capitals extending their lead in the Eastern Conference in particular. Let's not concentrate too much on the NHL as a whole, but let's bring it home. Extending their lead in the Eastern Conference, and more importantly, the Metro Division over the New Jersey Devils. Now, again, I know this is all subject to change, and I know it's a fluid situation as I record this at 4 p.m. on Sunday, but right now, I'm living the high life. Our team is riding an incredible 9-game winning streak on the road marking a franchise record. Records are being broken this year, and oftentimes it's Alex Ovechkin breaking this goal and this record and that record. This team that's too old to get anything done, and I know that's changed this year, but even in the beginning of the year, people were saying that, there's teams and they got incrementally younger, proving everyone wrong. And one of the things that really haunted the Capitals last season was that goal differential. Ooh, no one wanted to talk about that. How did this team make it to the playoffs with such a horrible goal differential? The Capitals' goal differential is impressive. The best in the league with 109 goals scored and just 74 allowed. Let's feel it, Capitals fans. If you are in your car right now, high five your steering wheel or your neighbor. If you're on a bus, do the same thing. Whatever the case is, if you're not loving this team right now, I don't think you ever will. The team has been simply dominant. And now the good thing, I think that the Capitals knew they could lay it all out there because they have a stretch of games here. Their next game is Thursday. The Caps have a little break coming up, a well-deserved break, a 4-day rest before they take on the Blue Jackets on December 12th. Again, I am so excited about this game, but first, let's recap some standout performances from the Canadiens, the Habs, if you will. Tom Wilson making a case that he is deserving of greater things. Future captain of this team, I don't think that's a mystery, has been a warrior on the ice. He took a puck to the face, but didn't miss a beat. Tom Wilson dominating. If you looked at him, he looked like a chipmunk out there when he returned, but he did not let that stand in his way. A guy that is well known for his hockey play, a player that's well known by women as being attractive. That had to be a hard thing for him as a guy that's revered as a good-looking hockey player to have these big puffy cheeks out there. In any event, Tom Wilson did not let any of that stand in his way. Now, after icing his face briefly, he came back stronger. I think ultimately more determined, as we know that Tom Wilson is from the Toronto area. And I think that, to stand and play on these, what I'm going to say, coliseums of the NHL, and I'm going to go ahead and say that's what Toronto and that is the case in Montreal as well. That's what those are, hockey coliseums. Now, and I think he feels the need to bring that just in general. I think part of that also because Alex Ovechkin is out of the lineup. A lot of things. This marks his second multi-point game in the last 5 and brings his total to 7 points in his last 6 games, with 11 goals overall this season. And there was some dips, there was some dives where he was not scoring any goals. He was assisting on a lot of Connor McMichael goals along with Pierre-Luc Dubois, but I think it's a good thing to see him scoring goals. He can do it. This guy is not a goon, a junkyard dog. Tom Wilson can score goals, as was apparent against the Montreal Canadiens on Saturday evening. But not just Tom Wilson. Pierre-Luc Dubois has been nothing short of amazing. Now, if you take a look at the back of his hockey card, you might say, hey, do you want to take a look at this a little bit closer, Dan? I guess I'm not seeing what you're seeing. He brings a lot of intangibles, a lot of things that maybe aren't as easily quantifiable, but made a significant impact early in the second period, scoring just 34 seconds in to reduce the Canadiens' lead. A guy that's been huge. And if you're a fan of the Capitals, you know why he's important. I know why he's important. Getting a goal, more goals would be a good thing, but ultimately he is just the driver of this team in a lot of regards. He can stand up against some of the best players in the NHL. That in and of itself is huge. This was his 4th goal of the season. Keep an eye on him. I'm going to say he's on track for a fantastic debut season with the Caps and is excelling against top players on opposing teams. And again, a lot of the people, what are the Capitals doing with Pierre-Luc Dubois signing that 8-year deal with the Kings, 7 years left with the Capitals so far, the first year in? I am loving this deal. Another player that did not get any love in the Four Nations face-off is Dylan Strome, but I don't care about that. Dylan Strome is huge for this team, capped off our scoring on the power play, bringing the final score to 4-2. Dylan Strome, Just a huge piece, a guy that I think in a lot of ways picked up the baton from Nick Backstrom and has really helped this team. With Ovi, without Ovi, in any event, has been huge. Now, this is a great sign, particularly after a 2-game stretch without a power play goal. Strome's tally now puts him at 35 points in just 27 games, ranking him tied for 7th in the league in scoring. Again, this is not a one-trick pony. This is not a team that is solely driven by Alex Ovechkin anymore. It has a lot of multi-dimensional talent. And, and I guess this team hasn't always been that way, the perception. But I think here, the last couple of years, that has been the perception that it's Alex Ovechkin's team. This is really kind of showing everyone in the NHL that it is just not the case. This Capitals team can score on a lot of different levels. All right, so coming up here after the break, I'll talk about the game that started it all. The Caps take down the Maple Leafs. How did they get that one done? I'll discuss straight ahead. I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out it was really as easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnhl. There you'll see right now, all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with the high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can see your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all existing contracts. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnhl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnhl. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedon. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only, speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And that is the frustrating part for me. My favorite band came to town, my favorite sports teams playing, and there are a lot of different options. And the questions that remain: what is the view of the stage? What is the view of the ice or the playing surface going to be like where I'm sitting? Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. Every day you can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And I want to thank all of you for making this podcast your first listen of the day. All right, in this next segment here, we're going to talk about the triumphant Capitals as they take down the Toronto Maple Leafs. And there's one thing I know about the Maple Leafs is they love hockey. Whether they're winning or they're losing. In some cases, I almost think they like it when they're losing because they can just ruminate and just really stew about their team and how well they're not playing. But to be fair, this year's Maple Leafs team is really good. The Capitals are good. The Maple Leafs are up there. But the problem with the Maple Leafs, if you are an NHL fan, is they always find a way to lose in the playoffs. In any event, we know that it was going to be a high-pressure situation as the Caps played the Toronto Maple Leafs a great thing that they were able to find a way to win. The Capitals put on an impressive show in Toronto, clinching a 3-1 victory against the Maple Leafs at Scotia Bank Arena. Again, another one of the Coliseums, I'm going to say, a great place to see a hockey game. This win not only tastes sweet, but also marks their first triumph in Toronto in 5 years. Isn't that interesting that the Capitals struggled to win in Toronto? And there's been different places that they've struggled. I remember years ago, it was the Shark Tank. For a while, it was in Dallas. That for whatever reason, teams struggle in certain environments. Now, exciting performances lit up the night. And it was a tough one. There was a lot of pressure in this game. Nick Dowd is the guy that really stood out with a goal and assist. Well, Connor McMichael, if you're not loving his game, and just wow, just the ceiling and the trajectory of Connor McMichael stole the spotlight with a game winner, bringing his impressive total of 12 goals at 5-on-5 this season. Good enough to tie for the league lead. It's an interesting thing. I'm going to get a Capitals jersey for Christmas. At least I think I told my wife that is what I want. And the reverse retro. And she said, well, who do you want? Do you want Ovechkin? And she's like, no, let me guess. Tom Wilson? I said, no. I said, I think I want a Connor McMichael jersey. And she's like, that's interesting. That is how much I love his game. And that really doesn't mean anything. That is just my personal taste. And to be clear here, I already have a Tom Wilson and an Alex Ovechkin jersey, but I am just so happy about his game and how he has taken it to the next level. And there's certain examples where things go right and wrong, and Connor McMichael is an example of how things go right when given an opportunity and you have confidence in yourself. That is what is apparent. And it's not always apples for apples, more apples and oranges. Is you see Hendrik Slop here, who was on a similar trajectory, and he's playing better as of late, definitely is not in the same boat as Connor McMichael. Now, another player, like I talked about in the first segment, is Pierre-Luc Dubois, who contributed with his 14th assist in that game and has been on fire lately, recording 3 points in his last 3 games. Is there any buyer's remorse on Pierre-Luc Dubois? Not for me. I'm loving his game. I really look forward to see what he can do going forward. And much like the first segment and how well the Capitals played over the Habs, Tom Wilson continues to make an impact with 6 points over his last 6 outings. That was in the game against the Maple Leafs. So quite an evening for the Capitals, and just positivity exudes. And I actually look forward to when the Capitals play up in Canada. It's just they take it to the next level because, generally speaking, the teams up in Canada really bring it. And I like how the Capitals are put through their paces, and I like how they can rise to the occasion. And that was what I speculated on. Again, if you listen or watch this show on a regular basis, a lot of people were bummed out when they lost to the San Jose Sharks. I said, sometimes this team can rise to the occasion against big opponents. They did just that. Now, there were milestone moments to celebrate in this game as well. If you know, Spencer Carbery was a coach for the Toronto Maple Leafs. This game was particularly special for him, who enjoyed his first victory against Toronto as the Capitals head coach. And hey, let's all do this. If, I've seen what the Capitals have had here as of late as coaches. I'm talking and how they've struggled. I'm talking about Peter Laviolette. I'm talking some of these coaches that weren't square pegs and round holes. That I think that Spencer Carbery has been just the perfect coach for this team, and let's give him a hand right now. Finding a way to overcome, and finding a way that if that didn't work, I'm not going to kind of keep doing the same thing again and again. I am going to make changes, and that is what has ultimately got the Capitals where they're at. Now, not to be overshadowed, defenseman Rasmus Sandin as well, a former Maple Leaf as well, achieving his first win against his former team since his trade in 2023. So a lot of significance in this game for Spencer Carbery, Rasmus Sandin, and the Capitals. A lot to be excited about. Now, game dynamics and electrifying start to set the tone. The Capitals came out strong, creating promising chances early on, though they faced challenges with puck possession. That was a little bit the case in the Canadiens game as well, something that needs to get cleaned up. And one of the things that I saw Spencer Carbery on the bench point to his head and go, smarter, you smarter. And I think that's all you need to say. Like if you made a play that probably wasn't the smartest play, your head coach pointing at his head, tapping and saying smarter, message sent, message received. Sometimes overpassing instead of taking solid shots. And I saw that with Pierre-Luc Dubois in the other game as well, is that he was looking to pass it to Tom Wilson when there was a net there. Woulda, shoulda, coulda. This is all real game time situations. We're sitting on our couch or at the game. We're not on the ice. But as an NHL player, sometimes I understand what they're saying. Gotta shoot the puck. That is what has got the Capitals where they're at. Take a look at Connor McMichael, for example. Greasy goals, driving the net. That has been part of his secret sauce. Now, even with the initial struggles against Toronto's goalie Anthony Stolarz, the Capitals managed to break through with Dowd's skillful deflection. Now, Dowd, fourth line, stirring the drink, huge this year for the Capitals, was huge against the Maple Leafs as well. Now, despite 4 power play opportunities, they couldn't capitalize. But the persistence was evident. They were making strides to get better. And ultimately walked away with a win. You know, I know that special teams is something they're going to have to work on, but at the end of the day, they get a win, and let's just be grateful for that at the end of the day. Now, decisive plays. The turning point in this game was riveting, and one of the things I've talked about this year's Capitals team is their pushback. They're not receding into their shell and saying, tell me when it's all over. Pierre-Luc Dubois' critical steal that led to Connor McMichael's game-winning goal, marking his impressive 15th of the season. Pierre-Luc Dubois, Connor McMichael, hand, meet glove, that is what you have. Alexei Protas as well in this game. You take a look at him, has really taken the next step forward. Last season, a little bit of a bumpy ride. And I got to be honest, when I first heard that they moved Alexei Protas to the top line, initially slated to be on the third line, I'm like, Alexei Protas? What are you guys doing? He has been huge for the Caps. Protas sealed the deal with an empty net goal, ensuring the Caps secured the victory even without the great 8. There's always that caveat. I think there probably will be until he gets back. Now, defense has been huge. Chychrun, Roy, Carlson, Faravari, they've all been huge. Both teams encountered issues with turnovers, but the Caps only lost 1 goal due to turnover, leading to a breakaway. A little bit different in the Habs, but I'm talking about the Leafs game. Goaltender Charlie Lindgren was exceptional with 20 saves, including a crucial glove save on John Tavares in the final moments. And make no mistake about this. I'm going to say this about the game against the Leafs. I'm going to say it about against the Canadiens. If the Capitals did not have the elite netminding that they have, they probably would not have won either of those games. Logan Thompson, huge against the Canadiens. Charlie Lindgren, huge against the Maple Leafs. If there was a way to sign both of those guys to an extension, I think they should do it. I don't think that will be the case, but so far, I am in love with this tandem. With a remarkable .952 save percentage, Lindgren has been on a hot streak, winning his last 6 starts. And, I guess, if you force me to answer, I guess I'm going to say Logan Thompson, of course, has the lead, but Charlie Lindgren is right there, and I am loving his game. A strategic effort paid off. The Capitals effectively contained Austin Matthews, limiting his impact throughout the game. That was except for the Tavares goal. The rest of the Maple Leafs lineup posed little threat. Showcasing the Capitals' defensive prowess is what it was. The defense was huge in this game. So all things considered, good things happen to a team that plays a solid 60-minute game. And I'm going to say all things considered, that is what the Capitals did. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, I'll talk about a scary moment in the game. Tom Wilson gets hit in the face and immediately is grabbing his face and heading for the tunnel. Worst case scenario, potentially, but not the case. I'll discuss straight ahead. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And listen, there is a lot of football that's played on any given Sunday or Monday or Thursday. And some of those games you're into, some of them you're not. Say it's a Commanders or Ravens game. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day talking about a scary moment in this game as Tom Wilson potentially faced a serious injury. When I saw that puck and I saw it hit him, I thought, he got hit in the eye, and that's not going to be a quick return. As it turns out, got hit off the cheek area there, came back looking like a chipmunk, but all things considered, huge. 2 goals in the game. What's not to love? Late in the first period, things took a turn when Tom Wilson did take that heavy hit to the left cheek from a booming point shot by friendly fire Jacob Chychrun. Dun, dun, dun. And one of the things that Tom Wilson said is, man, that really hurt. That speaks volumes of the shot of Jacob Chychrun. It's never a good sight to see a player skate off in pain, clutching their face. A lot of different things could have gone wrong. Nose, cheek, eye. I guess if he's lucky in a certain regard, is that it was off his cheek and not his eye. We saw Caps athletic trainer Jason Service quickly rushed to Tom Wilson, who made his way to the locker room for evaluation. Some tense moments as Capitals fans are like, no, not right now. Minus Alex Ovechkin, and now not Tom Wilson. What is going on in this world? It was not the case. After the game, which ended in a fantastic 4-2 victory for the Caps, Tom opened up about that scary moment. He shared his confusion, saying, quote, "When the puck hits you, I feel like the side of my face is falling off a little bit. Am I bleeding? Am I cut? What's going on?" Unquote. And I haven't been hit with something like that, I guess, in my life playing as a kid. One time I got hit with a rock. That hurt pretty much. I've been in a couple fights as a kid, younger man, shall I say. So I imagine getting hit with a chunk of rubber at a high velocity probably is pretty scary. And I know that they got those, clear visors over the front, but it doesn't really do a whole lot. I think that in a lot of ways they would be better off if they had the full shield like they do in college. I mean, how many more examples do we need? I know that Tom got lucky here, but let's take a look at Hagelin and what that meant for his career, not to mention Darcy Kemper, these kind of players that I think at some point that will be the case. It's not about the aesthetic of being able to see the player's face. I think it's about protecting these players, because some of those head injuries, like I'm going to go ahead and say Hagelin, can definitely be devastating. Now, it was clear that the hit was unsettling, not just for Tom, but the entire team. Coach Carbery and the other players on the team were quite concerned. Coach Carbery, along with the players, was on high alert, waiting for news from Tom Wilson and the training staff. Carbery, when I was watching the post-game presser, he expressed his concern that it could be serious, worrying about the potential for teeth or jaw injuries. That was another thing that kind of crept in as well with me was, a broken jaw. That's not going to be real quick. And I know sometimes they put him in those aquariums up front, but a scary moment. And Dylan Strome, along with his teammates, echoed those fears, admitting he thought Tom might have a broken jaw. Now, given, Chychrun shot, those worries were certainly valid. He has a powerful shot. He can find the back of the net. It could have definitely been a scary moment. But the uplifting part of this whole thing, finding the silver lining, if there is a silver lining in a potential scary injury, that despite the scary moment, Tom was cleared by the medical staff after a quick assessment and returned to join his teammates for those last minutes of the first period, sporting some ice on his cheek. A scary moment. Glad to see him back out on the ice, but what kind of Tom Wilson were we going to see? Well, that was quickly answered. His determination was inspiring, and oftentimes why people point to him as being the future captain, leading by example. He even said, "I was kind of told growing up, if you're good to play, you play. That was a quote from Tom Wilson. That warrior spirit is something we all love about him. Now, talking about game highlights, fast forward to the third period, and Tom did just return. He absolutely destroyed. He scored twice, helping the Caps fight back from a 2-1 deficit and seal a 4-2 dub over the Canadiens. Quite a moment. And if you're not loving the play of Tom Wilson, and just let that put everyone else in the NHL on notice as well of what kind of player Tom Wilson is. Just truly remarkable. This victory marked the historic 9th consecutive win on the road for the Caps. What an achievement. So all things considered, the Capitals are playing very, very well right now. And there is a lot to like about this team. Again, they have until Thursday off, and then they're going to play the Columbus Blue Jackets, but right now I am loving their game. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals and making it your first listen of the day. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.